Welcome to today's episode of the Here for Cheer podcast. I'm your host, Megan Gomarlo, and I've got another solo episode for you today. I did the 10 ways to be a great parent in our industry and in our sport. And today I am going to do 10 ways to be a coach of impact, to be a coach that makes a difference in the lives of the athletes that you coach. Kind of one of the reasons that sparked me to want to do this episode is I am 1 week away from having the absolute honor of marrying one of my cheerleaders. Not marrying myself, but I am going to perform the ceremony and be the JP at her wedding. And it just got me thinking of how lucky I am that I was chosen for this, that I'm somebody that she saw as more than just a coach and a teacher of X's and O's or of a win or a loss or of getting her back handspring, that she really felt that I impacted her life in a way that she would want me to be a part of one of the most special moments of her life. So I am so honored to be marrying Desmond and Pat next weekend. She was an athlete in my program from the time that I started. So when I was a nobody, our gym was nothing. We were starting from scratch. She was a kid that was in my program and who stayed with me throughout her entire journey until she graduated. She super seniored a year in our program, and then she came back to be a coach. And she's a phenomenal coach who now makes a difference in our program in a really positive way, but in a different way than she was an athlete on our mat. She was a great leader back then, and she is absolutely incredible as a coach now. So it got me thinking of, for this episode, I've now coached for longer than I haven't. And through that journey, I have learned so much and became a better coach for sure as I've progressed, as I've become a parent myself. And being a coach who makes a difference is something that we should all strive to do. It's more than just the wins and those losses. Trophies, they collect dust, and it's true. You hear it all the time, but they do. But the impact and the impression that you leave on a child's life is the most important piece. The way that you talk to them during really difficult moments in their sport, when they're struggling, the kind of empathy and compassion you show when they are struggling with something, and just kind of always remembering that the way you make them feel, the way that you make a child feel is the most important thing. That, you can believe in them, help them to believe in themselves when no one else does, or when they don't even see that belief in themselves. That really is so important. And then your legacy as a coach kind of boils down to those things, in my opinion. I've said it before that we've had some great wins in our journey of 20 years of running the gym, but the wins to me are the kids coming back and visiting me when they're on break, them calling me when there's something special that happens in their life, them shooting me a message and just saying like, hey, cheerleading had such a strong impact on my life. And you were someone that provided a safe place and a safe environment and somebody that I could look up to and somebody that I could count on, and just another extension of my family at home who believed in me and supported me, more than just as an athlete. And yeah, that's your legacy, coaches. So if you're a new coach in the business, I hope that you get so many great takeaways and reminders of the bigger picture of what really matters. And if you've been in the sport for a long time, I hope that this really motivates and inspires you to keep doing what you're doing and to know that you're making a difference in the lives of the athletes that you coach. And so I hope that this can be a really great one for you. So 10 ways to be a coach who makes a difference in the lives of the athletes they coach. Number 1 is effort over outcome. And I think this is a really important lesson for us all, those controllables. And by effort over outcome, that means that when we're at an event, coaches, and your team is a hot mess on the floor, and let's say things are falling, they are not hitting like you wanted, they're not placing where you wanted, that number one, coaches, that you are there to love and support those athletes through the good times and the bad, that you're willing to take ownership of it as a coach. When something goes wrong out there on the mat, I am the first to look and reflect at what I could have done better as a gym owner to help support those athletes, to help support those coaches, to make sure that we were prepared to take the mat and to put out a great routine. And then also to just be the first one to love them when it was bad. And, to be able to say, okay, yeah, man, we did drop some of the pyramid, and that's definitely going to affect our score negatively. But let's go through this routine and let's find the positives. Let's find the good things that we did, because there's never just all bad. There's always something that we can celebrate. And when we're watching that playback video, instead of being a coach who's pouting or, kind of like ignoring an athlete who's struggling or upset because of something that went on the mat, being the coach that instead is like, hey, it's okay. We're going to get back in the gym. We're going to fix things. We're going to work and grow and learn from this. Being the coach that's pointing out when we're watching that playback, like, wow, well, look at this. The tumbling timing was great in this section. And oh my gosh, we've been working so hard in the gym to make sure that the flexibility in this elite stunt section looks good. Finding the good, finding the things. Ooh, okay, we're a little off on spacing here, but look at how we get it back in this moment. Look at how even though one stunt came down, you as a team, instead of getting down on yourself and focusing on that moment, man, you came through and hit some other great sections of the routine. Being that coach instead of only caring about the wins or the loss or the outcome. Or also, I think as a younger coach, it was very and more of an ego-driven thing that I find, myself included, that it was like a reflection of me. And, I took it so personal. Remembering that at the end of the day as well, that it's their journey, their story. It's supposed to be ups and downs and all arounds. And your reaction to that, your reaction to the parents when things don't go our way, I think are so important. And again, celebrating those controllables. Coming off the floor after an event that doesn't go your way and celebrating that we didn't give up, that you were a great teammate, that you kept the energy up throughout, celebrating the good comments on the score sheet, reflecting on the ones that we need to improve on, but, always trying to find at least some good in every situation, and being a coach that cares more about attitude, effort, controllables than just a win or a loss. Number two is being the number one hype, the number one hype girl or guy, bringing that positive energy. So often you set the tone for practice. So even when we walk in the gym, I want to be the person that is, hey, what's up, everybody? Like, how was school today? What's going on? Hi, Susie. Hi, Becky. Yeah, I can't wait for practice today. I'm so grateful to be here. So excited. You set the tone for your practice. You are the positive energy giver. I always say to my leaders and to my coaches that you need to be the thermostat versus the thermometer. A thermostat, man, change the temperature. If you come into practice and you feel like something's off or the vibe's low, you be that thermostat, turn that energy up, turn it around, and look to your leaders to do that same thing. Don't just be the thermometer. A thermometer just sees what the temperature is and leaves it that way. Be a thermostat, be that positive energy giver. Find the good. You've heard it multiple times on these episodes from the incredible leaders and gym owners in our industry that it's a choice to be positive in a negative situation. It's a choice to see the good, to appreciate the lesson, to find gratitude, and making sure that you're building that intentional culture within your program is so intentional, positive culture within your program is so important. Your athletes and your families will mirror you, coaches and gym owners. They will mirror your behaviors. So how you face challenges, how you face adversity, how you face good days and bad days, they're going to mirror those actions. So you really need to hold yourself to a high standard of accountability. Another thing with coaches is I say, if we expect these athletes to show up all the time, but you are constantly showing up late or calling out of practices or calling off and not being there and being present for your athletes and your teams, man, what do we expect them to see? Once you take that obligation to be that role model and that leader for your team, you got to show up for them. And you got to show up for them even when, you might be struggling with something on the outside. And personally, it is our job and our duty to show up 100% for our kids every single day, and to be honest and transparent when maybe we aren't our best self. And it's okay to admit it, but to say, like, hey guys, it's been a rough day. I am stressed at work. I'm coming into practice. Help me help you bring that great energy today. Like, be there for me too. And I think it's so important that you do that and you are the number one hype of your team and of your program. Number 3 is relationships matter most. You've heard the quote that players won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that is so true. Relationships matter and trust matters. So taking the time to build relationships with your athletes, to find out their goals, to find out what motivates them, to find out how they're coached best, to ask them every so often, how they're doing in life. There was an activity that I saw online at some point, and we've tried to implement it different times in our program where, just ask your athletes to put in your band group chat or, wherever they can, or to email you kind of where they're at with a color of a heart. Like a red heart is, man, life is great. I'm feeling real good. Maybe a green heart is, I'm a little overwhelmed right now. Like, I'm a little overwhelmed with school, with cheer, with family, and a purple heart maybe means I'm struggling. And right now, like, I could really use some help and support. And, make sure that you know these things about your kids and that they know that you care about them more than a skill. And the way you show them that you care about them more than a skill is that, again, you show compassion when they're struggling. The way when no one else is around, how you handle when things are going good or going bad, that you're not condescending in your feedback, that you're approaching things in a really, in a positive way that makes a difference. Also, I always tell my coaches, those bondings, it's so important that you show up, that you're showing up to a team bonding as well, that you're making time to show up to the high school game when your athletes are a cheerleader they're cheering on, that you make it, you know, uh, make time to show up for activities that are going on with their life in school and National Honor Society and everything that shows that you care about their development more than what they can do for you personally, more than what they can do for your gym or your team. Also, that you care about them later on. I think it's so important that us as coaches care about that next step for them, about, where they're going to go to college or helping them to guide them in that next step beyond your program. Yeah. So showing up, making time, it's so much of a difference than in that high intense environment. It's why we ask athletes to do the bonding, is because we want them to just be able to be kids, to be humans, to not be in a pressure cooker of a high intense practice where, sometimes it is more intense and like the emotions are more high. We want them to just be able to chill and be more relatable as just people and not in those moments. So I think it's so important that you build those relationships and also with your families and your parents. I want my parents to see me as approachable. I want them to feel like I am human, like just like them, that I make mistakes, that I will admit my failures, that I want to build relationships with them. I want to know about what they do. I want to support their businesses just like they support mine. I want to let them know and show them that I do care about their athlete beyond the X's and O's. So that's another thing, to reach out when a child is struggling, to make that connection with the parents, to say, hey, Susie had a rough practice today, or Susie had seemed a little bit off today. I just want to make sure I'm here to support and let you know, like, if there's anything we can do, that we're here. Or, parents want that relationship with them as well, that it's this perfect triad of you all working together to build the best athlete, that it is a coach and a parent working together to support the child through all of the ups and downs and the journey of our sport. Number 4 is the process is the prize. Celebrate the wins, celebrate everything. I like to joke that I like to celebrate probably too much. I'm celebrating a half birthday. I'm celebrating just little milestones throughout our season. Celebrate each other, celebrate your team, celebrate your athletes. find ways to recognize your leaders, find ways to recognize the people that are living your culture, find ways to celebrate your families and your parents. The process of who our athletes become is the prize, not the wins and the losses. And the sooner you can see that as a coach, the sooner you can get your families bought into that kind of culture, the better an environment you're going to have, and the more enjoyable the season and the journey is going to be. Really teaching your athletes to love the grind, to love the hard days, to love the rough practices, because that's where growth happens. To teach your families that same thing, that man, if just it was always smooth sailing, we come into practice, everything's perfect, we go to compete, we're just winning, everything's wonderful. You just stay the same. And it takes years to kind of see the wiseness of that it's the process of who we become. It's the challenges that show us who we are. It's the challenges that show our athletes who they are inside and what we can overcome. And if you've been in sport for a long time, those seasons when all the odds are stacked against you, when everybody is saying like, this team's not going to do much this year, and you come out swinging and have a successful year, those are the years you remember the most. Like going through the grind, going through the hard times, going through the adversity and coming out on top. Those are the best years. Everybody loves an underdog story. It's okay to go through some adversity, and just to remember that cheerleading is that. And the process of the person, the human being, the 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 human that everyone becomes at the end of this is why we do sport. It's why it's a vehicle. It's the vehicle to building great people that can handle things. And it is proven that kids that are involved in after school things like sports, like arts, they are set up for a better life later on. So that's why we do this. That's why we want our kids in community. We want them to have people that they can look up to. We want them to learn how to be leaders for the next generation. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. Number 5 is setting clear expectations and standards. It's so important as a coach that you're clear. They don't know what you want. They can't assume what you want from them at a practice in terms of how fun is practice, how much all work is practice, how much all focus is practice. It's so important that you set those standards and those expectations, and you're clear about them. And then that you also do that with your families, that you set the expectations of your attendance, of how you want them to behave on social media, how you want them to represent your program at an event, that you're clear with your practice plan with your athletes and those expectations, and that you're all on the same page. That's another thing that we've heard over and over again in these episodes, is that everybody on your team and in your program kind of has to be on the same page. You have to set those expectations. It's very different how you coach a team that just wants to be, successful and hit the routine and come in, top 3 at events and do really well. And there's a different mindset and a different way to train to win high stake events, like NCA, I think of UCA, I think of, those big cheer sport, all of that, majors, summit, worlds. If you're going just to win those big level events, you need to coach differently than to not, And also, I think especially in our lower levels, we are a big believer in our program of a love of the sport. And so I am very honest and transparent with my younger, like youth and below, that we can be crazy people and win comps. We can be cutthroat, and make practices not fun and be super demanding and be kind of crazy to the point that your kid doesn't feel good today. Well, we got to practice, and I don't want to be that person. I don't think that that's what we should do with our youth. It's my belief that kids should love our sport, and I want them to continue on from minis to youth, to junior, to senior, to beyond our program. And so we're very honest that we're going to be successful. We're going to teach all these things and we're going to build strong routines, but Our number one goal is that our kids fall in love with cheer at that age, that they fall in love with the sport, that they fall in love with our gym, that they are leaving practice happy and excited and motivated. They are not leaving practice or events crying and discouraged, because we have to be so hard on them with a win at all cost mentality. And so it's really important that you set those standards and those expectations, and you're honest, and you explain the why, and that you have people on board that also believe in that vision. Burning out a kid is never my goal. And it's so important that we explain that to our parents, that, we can be those people and burn them out, and then they'll never cheer again. And you'll have a year full of wins and a year full of trophies and jackets and accolades, and great, but at what cost, And then I really believe as those kids get older, they start to have that, competitiveness, that drive. They become a little bit more serious about their sport. And yeah, I think it's just really important that we're clear in those expectations and that how we want it to look. Number 6 is model a we over me and a team mentality, a team player mentality. Coaches, it is so important that you have the backs of your gym owner and your coaching staff, of everybody involved. The same way we talk to our athletes of, you might not like everybody on the team, but we're all here for the same mission. So we have to respect and, build that morale at that level. As coaches, it is so important that you are acting that way with other teams and other coaches in the gym. You don't want to be that toxic person that is comparing your team against another team in the gym. That is kind of like setting teams to be against each other. Also, that you always have your coaches and your gym owners back, even when they make mistakes. We are a united front. And even if I am, not agreeing with the decision a coach in my program makes, I will go toe to toe and always have their back above anything. And then we will privately, have the conversation of, I wouldn't have handled that situation that way, or I really need you to dial in on this, or, this is kind of the way we do things here. But I will never not have my staff not have their back in front of my parents, in front of my athletes. And it's so important that as coaches, you model that same behavior to your co-coach, to another coach within the gym. And you are really living that we over me kind of mentality. No B, C, D, E allowed. That's a big motto in our program. The B is no blaming, no being a blamer. And C is no complaining. D is no being defensive about everything, like being coachable, being willing to take feedback, being willing to admit when we do something wrong. And then E is no excuses. No B, C, D, E in this gym. We do not want any of that. It doesn't help anything. Unless you have a solution, I don't want to be a breeding ground of our program of blaming, of complaining, of being defensive and making excuses. I want the opposite. I want seeing the good. I want solving problems. If something's going bad in our program, I want you to come to me, parent, athlete, anyone, and with a way to solve it. And I want you to reflect on what you could have done to help first. Susie's not landing her tumbling skill, or Susie's not stunting correct in the stunt. I look to my athletes to be like, okay, well, how are we helping Susie? Are we offering to come in the gym for extra reps on an open gym? Are we being supportive and encouraging and all of those things? Or are we only just finding bad and finding the negative? So finding the good. Leaders eat last. Like remembering that it's not about you. It's about these kids. It's about their journey. It's about their story. It is not your win. It is not your getting a skill. It is about the kid getting that skill. Yes, you helped guide them. Same with the team. When they win, I didn't win the summit. That team did. I hopefully was a great leader and a great role model and a great motivator, and I helped guide them. I helped train them. I helped lead them in that way. But man, that win is theirs. And the sooner that you as a coach can recognize that, and that it's not about you, that this being a coach and being a leader is a very selfless, a very leaders eat last, truly. Like, it's about them. Even my team's running on the floor. I talk to my leaders, my seniors. I want them on the floor last. I don't want them first. When we're, going to eat at a team dinner, I'm trying to train my kids to always look for those younger, look for the lower, pull them up, send them first, and leaders go last. They take the praise last. They take the recognition last. And that's the same thing with taking the blame. When something goes wrong in my program, I don't immediately blame my parents, my coaches, my athletes. I look and I first blame myself. When something goes wrong as the gym owner, I look at what I could have done better, what I could have done better to educate, what I could have done better to support, what I could have done better to help prepare. And it's so important that we do that. Again, when something goes wrong at an event and we aren't scoring where we should, we aren't, hitting sections, we're touching down, we're not hitting numbers. My first reflection is me. And my first reflection is not the judges, not blaming the kids, not blaming my staff. Again, it is looking at what I could have done better. And the sooner you can do that, coaches, the better you'll be as a leader and the better your whole program will be as a whole. Your parents and your coaches and your staff will respect you more because you're the first to take the blame. You're the first to reflect. And then teaching them that same thing, then it'll mirror your behavior. So they will start to say, ugh, we probably should have watered that skill down, or we probably should have spent more time on A, B, and C, or I probably should have made sure that, this child was comfortable throwing that pass before I put that in. Taking the grunt, taking the blame, that's what it means, in my opinion, to be a great leader, for sure. We are on to number 7. 7 is over communicate. I think it's so important, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, and I'll stand on the hill of communication. Over communicate your decisions. Coaches, when you get a gut feeling that something is going to make someone upset, make a parent upset, make a child upset. When you make a decision that might cause different opinions, explain the why. Tell your parents, tell your athletes why. They want that communication piece, and it kind of closes that gap and builds respect, in my opinion. So everything. We all know the year that maybe, Susie's not going to fly anymore. Instead of just pulling Susie out or not placing Susie on a team because she really has the skill level, to maybe the tumbling to be there. She could base or fly there, but we just don't have the spots. Like we don't need another flyer or we don't need another base. Get in front of tough conversations and over communicate. Don't avoid. As hard as it is, hit those tough conversations head on. Call the parent, call the athlete, have a conversation, explain the why, and get in front of things, and put out those fires before they even start. And I think that's a really important lesson that if coaches did, they would have a heck of a lot less stress in their lives. And yeah, it really just opens up that communication. It opens up that ability that, coaches and parents and athletes can come and talk to you when they have questions, when they're unsure, or when they are fired up about something. Getting ahead of it makes a big difference. Also, over communicate your praise. Again, it goes back to not just finding the bad in everything, find the good and tell your parents, tell your athletes, tell your staff when you see something good happening. Over praise, and build that kind of culture in your gym of we celebrate, we love each other, we get excited for each other. We clap for each other. And when anyone in our program has a win, it's a win for all of us. When a team does well, even if another team in our gym doesn't do well, it's a win for Northern Lights. It's a win for all of us, and everyone will have their time. Everyone will have their time to eat the cake. And I believe that. And it's proven true with 20 years of owning the gym that it works out that ways. It ebbs and it flows. There's peaks and there's valleys. And it's okay to celebrate each other in the moments of the good and to support each other in the bad because it will flip. And you just want that same kind of energy going in the good and the bad, no matter who it is. Also, coaches, shift your language from a you to a we. When we're going to try to fix things like you need to change A, B, and C, you need to do this, you need to change that language to we. We need to, show up more and get more reps in. We need to work on fixing this stunt. We need to work on helping you gain confidence in your tumbling. Parents, we need to kind of shift things to this. We need everybody's support. Just that one little word can make a huge difference in the mindset and the way that everybody takes the information you're giving, and can make a big difference. All right. We are on to number 8. Celebrate the person and not just the player. And I think that's so important. Making every athlete and every parent feel very seen. Focusing on the kids that maybe are not the star or the superstar, as equally letting them know how much you love and appreciate them as you do your best tumbler, your point stunt group, and making sure that every kid knows that you believe in them, that you care about them, and that they matter in your program, that they matter in your team. So often, as a leader early on, the negative parents were like sucking up all of my energy. And I was constantly like wanting to please them and to make sure that I was, you know, putting out those kind of fires. And I would forget about my great parents that just are the ones that show up no matter what, that the ones that are, paying on time, that are putting out good and, that are posting positively about us on social media, that are jumping in and willing to donate or to volunteer or to do anything we need at any time, that are, really living our culture, breathing our culture, supporting our staff, that I was so focused on pleasing the negative Nancy's in our program that I forgot sometimes about the good ones. So now we really make an effort as a staff to celebrate and to make sure we say thank you and appreciate the people that are often overlooked by the negative people. So making sure in that regard, as well as those athletes, the athletes that are just great, that just show up on time, that do the work, that do the extra. Sometimes they are almost forgotten about because they're just, you can count on them. And you're putting so much energy into the ones that are, sometimes an attitude at practice or struggling or not living the standard of the team. So make sure that you find those people and that you never are a leader that only cares about what they can give you on a cheer mat or on a cheer floor. That you care about those other things and the other ways that they impact your team, your culture, your program in those ways. So, yeah, making sure everybody's seen, taking that check at the end of practice. And, the same way you take attendance, go back through that attendance at the end of practice and did I personally connect with every one of these kids on my roster? Did I make time to see the kid that just is quiet and, maybe in the back for things and maybe not tumbling or not in a really important role, but did I make time to make sure that that kid is special, is important, and that I believe in them and appreciate, them being there in our program? Number 9 is be a lifelong learner. You know, Never saying, well, we've always done it this way. Being able to evolve as a program, as a leader in maybe things that worked for your program 10 years ago don't work anymore. And that's okay. Going and listening to podcasts like this and growing and developing as a human being to become the best you can be for the athletes you coach and for the parents that you lead and for your program. Going to conferences and reading books and never stopping learning. Always being willing to grow and learn and evolve. It is so important. And then that also kind of just bleeds into your program. If they see you being willing to learn and grow from other people within our industry and never say that, hey, I know it all, that teaches them to be willing to grow from others, to be willing to also want to master their craft in other ways. Being a lifelong learner, I think, is a sign of a great coach and a great leader. And so making time for that is so important. Number 10, this one was really hard for me to learn early on, is that remember that you're not everyone's cup of tea. You can come from a great place in your heart. You can make decisions for the right reasons. And there are going to be people that no matter what, and parents that don't believe in you and don't agree with you. And the sooner you can learn that you just need to stay true to you and what you know is right for your program, for your kids, the sooner you'll find kind of peace in your role as a coach. I would take things so personally early on when people didn't agree or were talking poorly about me or, you know, any decision I made, they were against. And it was really hard because it made me sad. I mean, I would cry. I would be upset about it at night. I would be I want to take feedback from my families, but there are times that there are just people that no matter what you do, it is never going to be good enough. It is never going to make them happy. And it's really hard to swallow as a people pleaser, as somebody that wants people to love me and believe in me. And the sooner that you can kind of just accept that and move on from it and appreciate the ones that do. Focus on the ones that do believe in your vision, your culture, your leadership of your program, and being okay with those people knowing they're not the right fit for you. And, they might need to find a different program. They might need to find a program that more aligns with their vision and their goals for their athlete. Yeah, but the sooner that you can kind of accept that, and I say it like it's easy because it's not, because still, when people, talk bad about me or are going around behind my back and it hurts. It hurts my feelings, but you have to just kind of focus on the parents that do believe in you, that do appreciate you, that and remember the lessons and the times that you've made a difference of things like getting to do a wedding for one of your athletes, the things like a message. I just read a college essay from one of my kids that's about to graduate from our program, and it was all about how All-Star Cheer made such a difference in their journey of, their belief in themselves, their confidence to tackle things, their seeing different parts of the country, experiences, new going through hard times, having to show up for their teammates and being a great teammate for them, going through hard times, good wins, good losses, everything. And it brought me to tears to see that impact. And that's what you kind of have to go back to. You have to go back to relationships when you're going through tough times in your program. I wish I could say that every year is just easy, and it's not. We have years that there are more difficult challenges with our teams. There's more difficult challenges with our parents, with our coaching staff. It's going to go up and down and all around. And if you can focus on being a coach who makes a difference, a coach who makes an impact, it makes those tough times so much easier to kind of navigate through. And yeah, if you are a coach in our sport, like, thank you. Thank you for what you do for our kids. I'm a mom as well, and I can see the difference it makes in my own children's lives of the lessons that it teaches and the community that it provides when we've gone through good times or bad times, that it is a second home. It's a safe place. It's people who believe in the character qualities that I do, that we believe in our home, that are kind of just iterated at a practice environment in a competitive environment, that they're teaching my babies to be great people, and great athletes and great competitors, and to never settle, and to dream big, and to believe that anything they set their mind to, that they can achieve. And they have that community within our gym, and I'm so grateful for it. And coaches, you are that person for an athlete. Remember that you make a difference. Remember that you are the reason that an athlete feels confident or feels defeated, believes in themselves, or, falls in love with this sport or falls out of love with this sport. And to hold that you have that ability and that impact to take that with so much care, and to make sure that you're reflecting in the mirror with every decision, with every word that you speak, that you can either breathe confidence, breathe belief into these kids that you coach, or you can do the opposite. And we all know, if you've been coaching, that this is not a job that you're going to become a millionaire. This is not a job that you're not going to sacrifice time away from your own family, time away from your own goals, that the late nights in the gym, the weekends away on the road, you are going to miss things with your own families and your own friends. And, but man, is it worth it to know that you make a difference and you're appreciated. Please keep fighting the good fight. The noise of parents can sometimes make our job really hard. And if you're a parent listening to this, just remember that, like, if you have a coach that is great, and that makes a difference, tell them. tell them, appreciate them, support them any way you can, and remember how lucky we are to have these kind of people in our child's lives. Choose gratitude, be grateful for all of the lessons that our sport teaches and the people that our athlete can become in these communities. And if you've gone through a loss, a hard time, we've had deaths in our program, and I am most proud of the way that our parents step in and rally around those families, those children, kids that are struggling through parents that are getting divorced, kids that are struggling through their own kind of struggles. I'm so grateful for the community and the leadership that the coaches and our sport can provide these kids through these struggles. So, yeah, just I hope that these takeaways either resonate with you as a coach, or if you are a newer coach in the game, that this can help you to find your coaching style, help you remember your why of why we start. And I think 9 times out of 10, a coach chooses to coach because of this impact, because of the joy it brings us to see a child or a team that didn't believe in themselves come out believing in themselves, that watching our kids overcome things, watching a team that have everything stacked against them defeat and defy those odds and come out on top, watching a kid that is shy and doesn't really have a voice, find their confidence to do hard things, find that inspiration to dream big, to go after a job one day, to go after a move, to not be scared, to try something hard. And even if it doesn't go their way, to be able to see those lessons, to be strong enough to keep moving ahead and trying again, and to not give up. And yeah, I know for us being from a small community, I want our kids to know that they can do anything, that they should never settle. They should never settle for a job, never settle for a relationship, never settle for anything less than something that lights them up. We get one life. Our sport years are short lived. And I want them to be enjoyable. I want them to be filled with great lessons, with great friends, with great community, with great purpose. And yeah, just to learn to believe in themselves and to know that no matter where they go, they've got those roots and that home at Northern Lights forever. That once they are a light, they are always a light. That, no matter what, it's about that kid. And I think the last point is, as hurtful as it is when an athlete leaves your program, as hurtful as it is when they quit or they, do something wrong or kind of do what we feel is wrong, at the end of the day, to just remember that they're kids. And a lot of those decisions come from their parents. And even, I want my kids to know that when they leave the sport or they do something different, that our doors are always open, that they can always come back and visit. They can always, I think it's so wrong when a kid quits mid-season. And yeah, that's hard. It's so hard for you to rework a routine. We're counting on them. We want to teach commitment. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's out of our hands. But to remember that it's still a child, that I don't want to be like shunning that child or making that child feel, I don't know, like personally attacked based on a decision that they make. I just think that it's so important that we lead from the front, and that we also are that voice when an athlete leaves our program. Like, hey, okay, they left. If they're not happy here, we don't want somebody that doesn't want to be here all the time. But I don't want my athletes, treating them poorly on social media or treating them poorly in school, or, we teach our athletes to be bigger and better than that, that it's okay. And yeah, do we wish people would follow through with a commitment? 1,000% but sometimes it's out of their control. And, they're a child with a mom and a dad who have to make some of those decisions as well. And just teaching athletes to have the compassion and to lead from the front in those areas as well, coaches, I think it's really important. Yeah. So I hope that today's episode gave you 10 amazing takeaways and reminders of what you can do to be a coach of difference. And again, as always, thank you for being a supporter of the Here for Cheer podcast, for tuning in, for listening, for offering feedback, for helping me find new guests. I can't wait to have more incredible people on. Nothing fills my cup more than hearing from you that you've learned something from a guest, that you've had a takeaway that you've implemented into your program that's made a difference, that, this has inspired you some way to keep going or reminded you of why you love what you do. That is the whole purpose of why we started this podcast, to spread love, positivity, and knowledge, and to help everyone within our industry find something, some golden nugget, some golden takeaway in every episode to help, make a difference in their lives and their impact. So, again, thank you so much for being a listener and for tuning in. And I look forward to bringing you more amazing content. And I can't wait to see you again next week. So, thank you again for being here, and we'll see you again soon.